What are some of those types of things that you guys got to make sure right up front we don't mess up?
Someone just killed someone today. You got there. What's some stuff you...
Well, I mean, obviously evidence preservation. You know, you want to make sure your crime scene's secure. Nobody is allowed in it. A lot of what you see happen is that a lot of defense attorneys will start nitpicking on how you handled your evidence. You know, how did you collect this? So the investigator that's doing the crime scene portion needs to be able to articulate, you know, this is when I got on scene, this is what I found, this is what I did with this item, this is what I did with that. And it's kind of like that when you make your detailed crime scene report, how you processed it. So I mean, that's if I have a strong case and they have a weak case, that's probably where the defense is going to try to attack it, is through evidence, chain of custody of the evidence. And then, you know, if it went to the crime lab, how did the crime lab process it? Those are ways that they kind of like to poke holes into cases. Usually when you find and see cases like that, where they're like kind of pretty obvious what happened, you know, we'll throw out the O.J. Simpson case, for instance. That's what happened there, is that all they did was attack the evidence,
right? The
evidence collection, and that one of the lead detectives had biased opinions of somebody.
What's up, everybody? It's the Talk About It podcast. I'm Lauren Fulmer.
I'm Victor Dantas.
And today we're excited to sit down with Josh Kramer. How are you, Josh?
Hey, good. How are you guys?
Good. Investigator.
Correct.
Josh Kramer.
Correct.
I've known you from school, long time.
Junior high, I think.
Yeah, that's when I moved to the area. So
like 7th, 8th grade.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. So look at us now, man. We're so grown and mature.
hey, maybe the grown part, right?
Yeah. So why don't you tell some of the folks, you know, what you're up to? Who's Josh Kramer? What do you got going?
All right. Well, I'm an investigator with the Monmouth Police Department. I've been in law enforcement almost 20 years. I've been with Monmouth 14. I've kind of done a little bit of everything in the industry. I started out transporting inmates from doctor's appointments to other jail facilities, doing some reserve work where you kind of volunteer to help the community, something we don't really see a lot of today, unfortunately, all the way up to doing this full time to where I'm at today. So a lot of different avenues in the last 20 years.
Right.
So.
Right.
What does someone need to do in order to become an investigator?
So, I mean, basically, get into what investigations, you need to just be an officer, get some experience, and then usually you kind of like work your way up. You know, you get your feet, I would say, seasoned, so you kind of have a good idea what's going on, how to handle different things, and then you kind of go through a selection process. So,
what's some of the skills that a regular officer would have that a investigator need to have? What's some of the skills that investigators need to have that regular officers don't have?
Well, I mean, a lot of things. For one, you know, you got to be, the cases that I handle are more on the felony side. They're more serious crimes. They require more time, whether it be, you know, evidence collection, interviewing. Personal skills is a big one, is being able to talk to people, being able to interview people. Yeah. That's definitely a big skill to have. So, I mean, it's just kind of it's building blocks. You know, you start at the ground and you start working your way to the top.
So, like there's a popular TV show, First 48. I'm sure you've heard of that. Mm-hmm. So some of those same principles apply, obviously, like the quicker you're on it, and the longer things go,
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we're in Monmouth, and you think that, you know, that stuff doesn't happen in Monmouth. Actually, it does. And the First 48 was actually about the first 74 hours for me a few years ago in the homicide that we had here in town. So, you know, I hit the ground in the late evening, and I didn't get home till like 74 hours later.
Wow.
So
yeah, and so that's just very real.
Yeah, it's real. Mm-hmm. When you see the show, most of those agencies have like a team of investigators, where, you know, you have 7 guys, 5 guys working a case. Mm-hmm. Here we have 1, maybe 3. So, I mean, it's a whole different, you have a whole lot of things going on all at once, and you kind of have to prioritize what you're gonna handle with first. What are you gonna deal with here? Who are you gonna talk to? Where do I need to go from here? And a lot of times, you know, box B leads you to C, and sometimes your evidence that's at B leads you all the way to Z. So, I mean, it just really depends.
How difficult is it, Josh, to really, I mean, truly have to remove any sort of prejudice, bias, or assumptions? You know, you look at a picture, you show up, and you're like, oh, I already know how this went, you know. But, I mean, obviously, you have to remove, to do your job, you know, and due diligence, you got to remove a lot of that, I would assume.
Never assume anything.
Right, and just start going,
Yep.
piecing it together.
Correct. Whatever, like I said, you know, piece A leads you to B, B leads you to C. And you just kind of go along those lines, you know. Like I said, you might make it to C, and the information that you obtain from that point takes you to Z. Or, you know, maybe it keeps going. Maybe you hit a point and you stall out. That happens often. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's just dynamics. You know, like the first 48. All that's dynamics. They've got crime scene processors that are doing their crime scenes for them. They're giving the information, hey, you know, we have shells to a 9mm, or we have 223 shells, or the victim was shot in the abdomen. You know, all that stuff's going on. And then you're also, you know, do we have video surveillance? Is there video cameras? Who witnessed this? I mean, all that stuff's going on at one time. So.
And just cell phones obviously can be a great deal of help.
Cell phones are a great tool.
Right.
Great tool.
Yeah. I mean, shoot, you can even track and know where they've been.
What a lot of people don't understand is that your phone is doing things in the background that you have no idea. Mm-hmm. Whether it's capturing your location, what you're doing with your phone at that time, what information you're downloading, what apps doing what, all that's retrievable. Mm-hmm. So
for you guys to have access to that, how does that work? You need to contact Apple or...
No, so there's a few programs that are out there on the market that we have, okay, that do forensic downloads of cell phones, tablets, cellular devices, and it'll extract all the information off your phone. The other way is through search warrants. So doing a search warrant through, say, Facebook or an Instagram or one of those accounts to get, and then you literally will get all the user content, all the IP address history. So you can kind of work that back. A lot of them, if you have your location service on, it'll tell you, you know, where they were at when they looked at this. I mean, it's...
And you have to get a search warrant to be able to access that digital footprints, right?
Correct. So I need to be able to articulate, you know, why I have reason to believe that there's information that's relevant to this crime.
Right.
So you have to ask to go in front of a judge and get signed off on. So.
And every time someone calls a person, there's a signal that you guys can track where the person was.
Not even, you don't even have to make a call.
Oh, so
you're
even without a call?
Yep, it's called a catch location, and it's constantly updating all the time on our phone, sitting here right here.
In 2000, this is what, 24 years ago, in 2000, my house got broken into. All types of stuff stolen. The PlayStation 2 had just come out, and it got stolen. They stole my Nokia cell phone. Remember the Nokia?
Oh, yeah.
And the only reason they got caught is one of the kids called this girl at like 2 a.m. They were able to see. So then at this time, they were able to go to the girl and just say, hey, look, we need to know who called you.
Yep.
From, you know, at 2 a.m, who called you? Mm-hmm. And she was able to identify and say who it was. And then they went right to him, and he said the other 2 or 3 kids that were with him, and everything got exposed right there.
Yeah.
But that's 24 years ago.
Yep.
You know,
and we've came a long way since then. I can tell you that. It's crazy though.
Yeah.
I mean, you can even do cell tower dumps that'll show you like all the cellular providers that were in a certain area at a certain time. So if you have a burglary and it's an odd hour, you can do a warrant for that, and it'll tell you. I mean, it's what I'm talking about takes a lot of time, a lot of writing, a lot of typing, a lot of explaining. And then when you get the information back, you have to go through it and try to figure out what you're looking at.
Right. Mm-hmm. What's crazy, you know, some of these like crazy, I'm trying to think like shootings, stuff like that have taken place, the big mass shootings. And then they find out like they've literally have Googled like how to go about this, you know, how to come into a school. Mm-hmm. And it's like how that doesn't just trigger something right away to like, hey, you know, it's something like if one of these 20 things are ever Googled, I feel like they should just be apprehended right then.
Yeah,
and there. I know you can't do that.
Yeah, we kind of have constitutional rights there that prevent that. But
right.
But I totally agree. There should be like red flags or red words or something that should alert. I agree.
Yeah,
because you're right. I mean, a lot of those unfortunate events could have been prevented. So, I mean, it is sad. But a lot of times, though, those events, those people have put stuff out there, and it just they never got taken seriously. Or, dude, he's just a crazy nut. You know, he's just talking like he usually does.
Right. Well, it's just a matter, and then they snap or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. They finally get to the point where they're gonna do it. So,
So is there a perfect crime? Like basically a crime that someone can do something and the cops would never be able to find who did it? Because I've always heard watching that type of show, people saying that there's no perfect crime. We'll always be able to track either if it's a hair or nails or something.
Blood sample, anything.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, you could leave a footprint, whether it be physical evidence or digital evidence or something in some way, shape, or form. So I would like to think that where we're at today, that is there probably something out there? Yeah, but also it would be the capabilities of the officers or the department that's handling the call as well.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays, isn't there cameras? You know, I'm even out on the streets. You know, like you were talking. Different businesses, you know, they have their own cameras outside, and at some point if you're moving out and about out on the streets or anywhere, at some point you're gonna get picked up on a Ring doorbell.
That's what I was just gonna say. The residential cameras have come a long way. I mean, I think if you drive down a block, I would say we're probably at a point where 1 out of 4 houses have some sort of a camera system on them, which I preach that to everybody and anybody. I mean, it's the world.
You have one, I assume.
Absolutely, absolutely. I have several.
Yeah. I haven't gotten to that point. Do you have
Cameras?
one?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. And I see in real time if someone steps on my doorstep, I receive a notification.
And then people talk about, well, I got an alarm system on my house. Well, alarm systems, I won't get into it too much, but when that goes off, all it is an alert. A door went up, a motion alert. That's all you get. That goes to a call center. Call center processes that, looks at it, calls that local law enforcement center, is like, hey, I had a Zone C alarm at such and such address. That's all the information you got. Well, between that happening, the call center to the dispatch center, you're looking at 25 minutes has already passed. So by the time anybody gets there, whoever was in there, or if there was, they're long gone. Where, like Victor said, he gets that alert. I can see who's on my porch right now.
And you can talk to the person.
Yeah.
So hey, don't do this,
Yeah.
bro.
Yeah.
You don't want to do this.
I mean, it's UPS, FedEx, you know, it's somebody delivering a package, and it's real time. So it's it's evidence. So versus, you know, those alarm companies, they charge a lot of money for a monthly subscription and that. And what do you get? What I just told you. That's it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can go out and buy a Ring or Blink or any of those camera systems for $200 and you can see the whole outside of your house.
I used to have a buddy, he had the ADT sign. No, sir. He said, I just do the sign. It scares him. I'm like, there's no way.
That's why you just need the protected by Smith & Wesson sign out front or something, you know?
I've seen those, right?
Might get a little further than your fake ADT sign.
He said, I just put the sign out. That's it.
Yeah.
It works.
Right?
Hey.
Probably to an extent.
Well, and that's another thing. I mean, if anything, it's going to be preventive. Because if somebody's scoping houses or looking at houses, they're looking for easy targets, soft targets. You know, nobody's home. There's nobody around. They don't see any cameras on the house. They're going to, you know, target that house versus the one that, hey, I see right out front he's got a Ring camera, and you know, they don't. Most burglars don't want to attract attention. You know,
Right.
They want easy
or even
targets.
motion lights. You know, when you walk up to a house, that's another,
Yeah.
I guess, added step.
Which once again, they've got the motion activated lights that have cameras on them too. So, you know, if you're going to buy one, you might as well go spend the extra money to get the camera on it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's impressive how the police can find people. You know, someone commits a crime here and goes to Texas. Like your system connects and talks to systems from other states and even other countries too, right?
Yep.
It's crazy how
Leads works everywhere.
Yeah.
So every
how you
state.
find someone like, oh, this person committed a crime in Illinois, now they're in California, they got caught.
Yep.
It's crazy how that happens.
Well, most of the time, those people if they behave in said manner, I mean, they're going to go to Texas and behave in said manner. Mm-hmm. They're going to end up in trouble. They're going to run into someone somewhere somehow, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, their behavior continues to a degree.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Like usually people, we've all watched some shows where like a guy's wife died like 30 years ago, and then his second wife died 13 years ago, and then he just had this wife die, you know.
Yeah.
And they eventually you find out like, oh, you know, they're linked. He had poisoned or done something in each one, you know. Mm-hmm. I watch too many shows, man.
Hey, no, I mean those are interesting. Yeah, I watch them too. Yeah. So I like watching those better than the like the CSI type shows.
I don't like fictional stuff.
Yeah.
Like the real cases.
Same.
Yeah.
Because I don't watch any of that.
Good, because it sends a lot of that stuff. It truly we do, but I don't have the information in 35 minutes. You know, it just doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
Have you worked on a case that you guys couldn't solve it?
You have to
I wouldn't necessarily say couldn't solve, but maybe just didn't have enough evidence to charge them with. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And in those cases, you cannot prosecute, like you cannot do anything.
Yeah. Usually we take whatever we have, and the state's attorney will make a decision. Whether he wants to pursue charges on it or not.
Okay. Josh, what is one of the maybe leading reasons that someone will end up not being found guilty due to some of the early on activity where a police officer or detective, messes up? What are some of those, like something you guys know, hey, this is stuff we can do? Obviously, like come on a crime scene and start touching stuff.
Yep.
Something. What are some of those types of things that you guys got to make sure right up front we don't mess up?
Someone just killed someone today. You got there. What's some stuff you?
Well, I mean, obviously evidence preservation. You want to make sure your crime scene's secure. Nobody is allowed in it. A lot of what you see happen is that a lot of defense attorneys will start nitpicking on how you handled your evidence. How did you collect this? So the investigator that's doing the crime scene portion needs to be able to articulate, this is when I got on scene, this is what I found, this is what I did with this item, this is what I did with that. And it's kind of like that when you make your detailed crime scene report, how you processed it. So I mean that's if I have a strong case and they have a weak case, that's probably where the defense is going to try to attack it, is through evidence, chain of custody of the evidence. And then, if it went to the crime lab, how did the crime lab process it? Those are ways that they kind of like to poke holes into cases. Usually when you find and see cases like that where they're like kind of pretty obvious what happened, we'll throw out the O.J. Simpson case, for instance. That's what happened there, is that all they did was attack the evidence,
right? The
evidence collection, and that one of the lead detectives had biased opinions of somebody. So, and that holds true anywhere. I mean, if you have a case where you don't have much to lean on, that's where you go.
Right, go right after that.
How was that case, O.J. Simpson? I don't know.
Not guilty.
Yeah,
the glove didn't fit.
You must have quit.
I don't know what happened. What was that case?
So O.J. Simpson was a famous football player,
college,
and
NFL
an actor. He did some Naked Gun and some funny
commercials.
Movies. He and his wife Nicole Kidman
Simpson.
Nicole Kidman is the actress. Nicole, though, anyways, they had their own troubles, a history of many police calls.
Domestics.
Yeah, domestic battery, her getting beat up. They had pictures of all this types of stuff, on and on, but she would go back to him out of fear or whatever, you know, or love. Love will make you do some real dumb stuff. But they apparently were on a separation or a breakup because she had this boyfriend or a
acquaintance,
right?
More than anything, it sounded like.
And suddenly, him and her murdered.
Brutally
murdered. I mean, blood.
Yes,
both.
In front of her apartment.
Right in front, on the front step. Blood everywhere. O.J. Simpson even had a bloody glove in his vehicle, in his Bronco. Had blood on like clothes,
shoes,
and different things. But he found not guilty because good attorneys and the whole process like they did, like he was saying, they attacked the police officer saying you're racist, You didn't secure the evidence correctly. They went everything possible. What'd that trial go for? A few years?
Oh,
It was on TV, and then it had to be
that was the first court case that was ever broadcasted live from front to end, and I want to say it was like 4 or 5 months long.
Yeah, I say it was a long time. And then they said
That's all they did.
Victor, they had him putting the glove on, saying, "No, it don't fit. Then you have to acquit. If the glove don't fit, you have to acquit." It became a famous joke,
line.
But all of a sudden these gloves don't fit. I couldn't possibly be the murderer. I mean, these gloves are too. I know they're in my car.
And they
I know they got
found
blood.
the murder.
No.
It's him.
Well, yeah, he's no longer with us.
He
so
just died.
yeah,
Oh, he just died.
O.J. Simpson just died like 4 months. 3-4
yeah, not
months
too long ago. But what they didn't tell you is that OJ had bad arthritis, so they had him stop taking his arthritis medicine, so his joints all swole. So, because the defense knew that they were going to have him try this glove on, he's like, "Well, we'll just have you stop taking your
You know
medicine."
why the Kardashians are famous?
Why?
Because their father was the attorney.
Was one of the attorneys.
O.J. Simpson.
Oh, really?
Before that, you would have never known anything of a
And
Kardashian.
when was that? When did that happen?
1993, 94.
Yeah, right around there.
Yeah, I remember my family and I would be like eating dinner, watching the court case on TV.
That I think it was court TV. That was like that's what brought them onto the air was that case.
That was nuts.
I wasn't even born yet.
Yeah, that's why I guess why you wouldn't have known. But yeah, it was a big deal.
It's there's a lot of different
Netflix documentary has a
And
great one.
everybody knew that it was him, but he couldn't be
Everybody.
prosecuted.
I mean, he has blood. I mean, it's easy to say, right? If he didn't do it himself, he had to have played a role.
Well,
what do you have bloody gloves in your car?
in the Bronco, he didn't even park in his driveway. He parked back on the street behind his guest house of his mansion that he lived in. So it was kind of like, why did you park out on the street? Yeah. And then he was kind of late getting to the limo ride that was taking him to Chicago. I mean, everything was, he did it. He did it.
There can't be any other possible person or way or something.
No. And DNA, another big thing about that case was like a founding case in the mainstream of DNA. Because really a whole lot of DNA hadn't been done before that. I mean, enough had been done to know the foundation of it. But as far as actual police investigations, that was a pretty big case that put DNA on the map.
And didn't OJ have some scratches or cut? I mean,
that's crazy.
It's just too ironic. Way too much stuff for him not to have done it. But that was his defense attorney was basically like, you guys are all trying to frame him. You guys set this. You put this.
So that attorney is good.
That's what they did. Like I said, they attacked the evidence.
Yeah.
They attacked every piece. They attacked that glove. They attacked why the investigators went to his house when they did. I mean, they just went after him on everything.
Yeah. You guys went and set this blood.
Yeah.
Prove it that you didn't. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw last week there is a group in Brazil that was robbing banks, and it's been 10 years and they don't get caught. And then in 2 of those banks, they found a piece of hair of one of the members. And that's how they found this guy. The guy is an owner of some gyms and some other businesses. Nobody would ever imagine, looking good, bodybuilder and stuff. And then they found this guy and found the entire group, and they've been robbing banks for 10 years. It's crazy. Because piece of hair that they found on the street in front of the bank.
I would say someone put my hair there. I didn't do that.
Well, and I mean, that's also interviewing techniques. Like I said, that's a big thing of being an investigator. It's like, hey, I'm going to set the stage for what we're going to talk about. Well, you've told me you've never been to such and such address. Yeah. All right. Well, then how did your blood get inside there on this date? You just sat here and told me that you've never been there.
Well, I forgot I was there once.
Yeah.
I got to pay.
And if you find a piece of hair in the
you were there.
In the bank in Peoria, and
right.
It's putting together a big puzzle. Like I said, sometimes
it sounds fun.
Sometimes
stressful as
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
What about to find those things? How do I find a small piece of hair in the middle of the street? You throw some light or you throw some liquid so it shows up?
Crime scene processing. I mean, it just depends on. Yeah. I mean, if you're trace evidence off clothes, that's literally what we'll do. Just take a lint, roll one, roll another one, and then lay them out, and it's A1, A2, A3.
Yeah.
To track fingerprints, let's say a house got robbed or a bank, and you guys get there. Like, what's some of the first things you do? Don't touch anything?
Well, don't touch
You
anything.
powder on things to find those, or is that just a movie thing?
Kind of a movie thing.
Okay.
But I mean, video surveillance is like, that's the go-to.
Yeah.
That, no matter really what it is, that's the first thing I want to know. Do I have, who's got video cameras? Is there video surveillance in the business? Who's got cameras around? You know, let's get the canvas going like now. Because that's gonna kind of entail on what I'm looking for, you know, because depending upon what went on, you know, say it's an after hours burglary, you know, do I see the guy come in? Did he have gloves on? If he's got gloves on, there ain't no point in trying to dust for prints, because I already know that he's got gloves. So then I'm looking for footwear impressions. You know, hopefully nobody's went inside and stepped all over my foot impressions, because I've solved several burglaries on foot impressions.
And how can you separate the footprints of people that were there, clients?
It's hard.
From the robbers.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. Yeah. Hopefully they had a good janitor that did a nice nightly clean, that there wasn't any.
Yeah.
You know, it's tough.
And if the business don't have cameras, you would just go to every house on the street and
Yeah,
see if
absolutely.
find cameras.
Yep.
If you find a white car that they got there with a white car, but you don't see the plate,
Yep.
how you find? You try to track where the car came from, ask for more cameras, and
Yep. Keep tracking that. I mean, like, you've seen the traffic cameras; they're becoming a thing now. The Reed's plates, Galesburg, Knox County has them. So I mean, and it doesn't only do that, but it'll track. Excuse me. You know, if you had a black car with no plates, it'll still even log those. So,
yeah.
Usually the people that do these behaviors don't just do it once.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you know, I might not have all the pieces that I need to get to Z, but they go over to another county and maybe they do up to F over there, and I only have A and B here. And then it's just, you know, a lot of investigations do lead to working with other agencies.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
What's always crazy to me is that there's never enough mentality, right? Like you said, these guys robbed many banks. I remember we had a long time, I don't know how long ago this was, but someone was jacking ATMs. Like they got like 10 or 13 or whatever ATMs, and they're getting away with it. And then finally, like the 15th one, they're like, you pop them, you know? And it's like, how many do you have to go before you can just...
luck runs out at some point.
Right.
I mean...
But it's crazy. The typical criminal can never be like, okay, hey, we pulled this off a few times, let's just stop.
Yeah.
The whole original plan, I think, and this is probably more for movies, but we're like, you get an idea, man, we need a lick. We got to hit a lick, Josh. We need like 10 grand. Oh, here's how I think we can do it. And we get the 10 grand and we're like, woo! Let's do it again.
Let's get to 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we can get 20 grand.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you just solved your problem that had you in the situation in the first place. Like, that's not enough.
Greed. Greed gets you every time. You know, it's like, hey, like I said, I want to get this. Hey, that was easy.
Right.
That was easy. And then they...
How often do you get cases that need to be investigated? Or is it every case, even simple ones, you need to investigate?
So... You asked a good question at the beginning, like, what's it take to be an investigator? Well, a lot of small cases, we encourage our officers to work on this case, work on talking to people, maybe checking other businesses, talking to other people, because that's how you start to build your own foundation to when you can be in investigations and then kind of do your own thing. So when cases, it just depends. I can have 5 cases in one day and then, nothing for a few days. But we encourage our officers to work a lot of that. And we're not too big. A lot of people, like, somebody will be like, oh, I was a Chicago cop for 30 years. Okay, what did you do for 30 years? Oh, I stood on the corner of such and such and such and such for 20, and then I stood on another one. Right. Oh, you work any homicides? And, work any armed robberies? No. We have all that happen here, and I get all that experience. I've been an investigator for 7 years, and I've investigated everything from homicides to robberies to arsons to residential burglaries. I mean, I get to do all that. Now, I'm not like saying that, pump that up, but that's a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Where in bigger cities, you might only work traffic, you might only work the robbery division, or you might only work crime scene. Here we get to do all that. When I went to crime scene school, so for the most part, I process all our own crime scenes. And then I take it every step after that. So
I would have never thought of it in law enforcement, but what you just explained is very much like working for a big corporate office, working for a small business. You know,
Yeah.
like I remember I worked in banking. I worked for a big corporate bank. It was very structured. This is all I did. And then I get with like Tompkins State Bank, small community bank. You do everything.
yeah,
You know, all the way to ordering sticky notes and pens. You know, you're like, so I never thought of that from law enforcement, but like, yeah, smaller town, smaller community.
Yeah.
You're picking up more.
yeah. Less resources.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
for
Like,
sure.
like when you're in the bigger banks, you have more hands.
Right.
Here, you only have a few. You know, and also, you know, we can rely, or smaller departments can rely on the state police for a lot of things. But once again, they have a lot going on too. So if you have a burglary and there wasn't anybody injured or nobody was harmed in it, they're not going to come out till the next day, or it might even be 2 days later. So you'd have to literally keep that scene secured until you had your crime scene guy come.
Speaking of smaller numbers, it's a pretty well-known fact that law enforcement, like all companies, are struggling to find good employees. What do you think some of the reason is with law enforcement, or is it just purely just the principle?
I think a few factors come into play. I think the big cloud that we've had over our head, I would say probably the last 10 years or so, hasn't helped recruiting any. And just like any profession, there's bad apples out there. I mean, in law enforcement, I mean, you go through a lot to even get on the job. So to say like an officer wasn't vetted well, but I would think would be an inaccurate statement through all the testing that we have to do. So you have that, right? You have the bad cloud. You have cops are racist. People have negative experiences, just like anything. If you have a negative experience, it takes about 10 to counterbalance the good for the one bad that you had. So you have those out there. And then you have, you know, the people that get out there that, you know, want to pop off on social media about stuff that happened to them, and it really isn't a 100% accurate thing of what went down. But once again, it puts the police in a bad light, right? And so you have all those things. You have the national media. You had the George Floyd incident that came up, the incident down by St. Louis where they said he had his hands up, don't shoot, which was come to be false. But once again, when you know you have people screaming that, it's like, what incentive do you really have people to want to get involved?
Right.
Like to do this job, and I say this all the time, 99.9% of every cop has taken this job to help people. I mean, literally, there's that 0.01% out there that's taking it for bad reasons.
Like any job, like
Yes.
any industry. Yeah.
Yes. And I think a lot of those have just overshadowed it. And now you're under the scrutiny, you know. Am I going to have to go to work and do my job, and then because I did my job, get held in a black light over me? Am I going to get suspended? You know, if I have to go out and shoot somebody, you know, how's that going to go down? I think it's just something that the industry has seen that people don't want to, you know, it might be fun, but I don't want to do that.
One of the craziest accusations I feel I hear about cops is like, oh, you know, they want to shoot, so, you know, or I'm coming to work ticked off today. My marriage is in shambles, and I'm gonna make sure I just shoot someone today.
Yeah,
Couldn't be any more dumb.
Yep.
To make a statement like that, and I truly believe that. The last thing you want to do is shoot, or even have to pull the firearm, let alone shoot it,
or use any force at all.
The PTSD, the stuff that follows that, it's
Yeah.
like that's not nothing that they are seeking out, you know.
Yeah.
And I swear, police officers are damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. Because if you choose in a situation right there where someone else has a gun, and you don't know, and if you choose to hesitate, now you're the one laying there dead, and you can't now do your job. You can't, you know. I don't know, man. I feel so bad for, you know. My heart just goes out legit to you guys. I have many friends and family that are officers, and like, it's real easy to sit in the recliner and be like, oh, that guy jumped the gun.
Oh, the Monday morning quarterback?
Yeah.
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 But he had no business doing that. Yeah, real easy for you to say.
Uh-huh.
And
Or
then
just shoot him in the leg.
Yeah, shoot him in the
Yeah.
But I always think too, we may have talked about this with Paul's Grove or Tony and Gar. We've had a few officers on, but like even just thinking about you're walking up to a car, you just pulled them over. You have no idea who's in here, what's going on, what they've been doing. And you just come up naive, and this person might be strung out on who knows what, or already they're having a terrible day. You just never know.
Yeah.
And now they're like, on top of my terrible day, this a-hole's about to give me a ticket. You know, I'm not having it.
Yeah.
And then you never know.
The videos are out there. I mean,
Yeah.
it happens all the time. You know, it's yeah.
I've seen many videos of cops that are clear as day letting the person go, saying stuff. I'm like, I would already handcuff them by now. But so they, you know, there's plenty of people that give way more than what you should.
Yes,
And you're
100%.
Like, you're so lucky.
100%.
I don't want to mess with this today.
Yes.
You
yes.
know.
Do you think after George Floyd, that's how you say it, right?
George Floyd.
The cops, it made the police be more maybe insecure in their jobs or scared of
Hesitant.
Yeah,
Hesitant, right,
That's
right.
the word.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Which is not good.
No, because it's life or death, like
Yeah.
Warren said. I mean, a lot of it's a split second. That's all that you have to make a decision.
Yeah.
I'm not overly informed on the whole George Floyd thing too, but wasn't it released that the officer and George Floyd had a history or a background? Like they worked maybe at some nightclub together or something. Have you heard any? It wasn't just an isolated incident of this officer and this man, and that they didn't know each other.
Yeah, George Floyd had a lot of police contacts, and I don't remember if there was like some with Chauvin or not, but I mean he'd had numerous. So I think that the Minneapolis police were pretty aware of who he was.
Gotcha.
What do you think of that case?
I think it's an unfortunate incident that they were all put in.
There is no winner.
No,
there is no winner.
No,
in that.
and I don't think putting any of those officers in prison was an answer either. I think that was more for the media show. They didn't want to have the backlash of what would have happened.
Right.
I don't think they murdered him. I don't think they killed him. I think the stance of all the drugs that he had in his system and his hyped upness is what led to where that ended up. And unfortunately, it was in their hands.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I didn't know any of the details. For some reason, I just remember, I thought I read or recalled somewhere that the two guys even knew each other. So it wasn't, from what I recalled, it wasn't like it just was this officer and this man, and you know there was something. I want to say there was something that tied them two together one way or another.
Yeah, there
I'm
could
not
be.
sure.
I just knew that he had a lot of contacts. So.
But either way, I think that's the best answer, man. It just was an unfortunate, altogether terrible situation.
And it goes back to what
once
you'd
the
already.
media-
Go ahead.
Once the media grabs a hold of something, it's
And then
it's
mix racism with the situation.
Yeah.
Well, and it wouldn't have mattered. There was race didn't even matter in the whole
Exactly.
situation. It
I
wouldn't have
agree
mattered if
with
he
that.
was white, yellow, brown. I mean, the same outcome was going to happen.
But the
you know?
pressure came from the Black Lives
Yes.
Matter and that type of stuff. Which
Yes.
They took the situation out of the occasion and started talking only about racism.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said,
Sad.
and like you said earlier, nobody wants to have to use force on anybody.
Yeah.
Okay. And nobody ever wants anybody to lose their life. You know, that goes hand in foot with that officers are out there to help people.
Protect
you know,
and serve.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
it's even if you come on a medical call and you're doing CPR on somebody and they don't make it, I mean, that still sits home with that officer, you know, because, you know, it's glorified that, hey, you show up, you do this, and, you know, they make it. Like, and unfortunately, it's not how it always works.
Yeah.
So,
I always think about just coming on to a situation, and I mean, obviously, number one, you want to try to secure the situation. You know, any sort of chaos, and everyone's flying off their mouth, and you got this and that, and like now it's escalated tension, and then it just, to me, that has to be one of the worst. And then you wonder where someone might say, oh, they used excessive force. I don't know, man. I just feel like their job was to try to control this situation, to get it under control. And I'm not saying you just start shooting, but like you have to find a way to control the situation
Correct.
before it escalates and gets completely out of hand.
Because like you said, you're in a bad spot. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You're like, if you don't take control, then they're like, oh, look, the cop's doing nothing.
It's a lot of liability.
Right.
But then when you do take, he was way out of line for what he did. Well, was he really out of line?
Yeah.
I don't
It's
think
tough. It's a really tough situation to be in. That's why I can't.
it's just do what's right, you know? And whenever we talk about, any use of force, 99.9% of every single person was asked to put their hands behind their back and was told they were under arrest.
Right. You can explain yourself later.
Yeah.
I've always thought that.
And I that's even actually one of my lines with people. Listen, I don't wear a robe. There'll be a courtroom for this. We're not going to argue this on the side of the road.
Right.
For your safety and for mine.
I would want my kids to know that no matter, just shut up and do your best to, like, hey, just live another day, have another moment, man.
Yeah.
Now is not your time, and you don't say anything disrespectful. Just shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we live in America. We have the judicial system that makes your voice. You're innocent until proven guilty. Exercise that.
Even explain yourself. You're gonna get, whether it's in the car or whether it's still sitting there on the curb or it's back at the police station or it's to your attorney. You will get your opportunity to explain the situation.
Yep, 100%.
You truly will. But you'll never get that opportunity if you fly off and choose to take the situation in your own hand and then end up with something crazy happening.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
In Brazil, the cops are just now implementing the cameras, and a lot of people is against it in Brazil. How important do you think the cameras are for cops? For cops' perspective.
all right. So I'm going to talk about been in the industry for 20 years. So the evolution of cameras have came a long way. I remember when I first started, we had the old VHS that you could put in the trunk and it would record. It wasn't the
dash
best.
cam.
Yeah. I've never had a bad experience. The cameras have always, I like it because it backs up what happens. I think it's hard. What happens is the different angles of things that happen. Yeah. So just because you have this angle, that's not the officer's perspective. So you have, like I said at the beginning, we just had the car cameras. So all you had was this little view. You didn't really necessarily have what happened over here. Or you have a peripheral, but it doesn't really show you what that officer was encountering. Maybe his back was to it, whatever actions were going on, you didn't see. So let's fast forward to within the last, 4 or 5 years, you've seen the body cameras come into play, which once again, they're great. I mean, if somebody needs to sit and watch me do my job for, however many hours, more power to you, I guess. You probably need something better to do. But if something happens, here you go. This is what happened. So I think that from law enforcement, you don't get a lot of pushback from officers.
Yeah. That's what I would
there's a lot of questions if I'm at home with my family on my break, do I have to have this thing on? Obviously,
can you turn it off anytime you want?
Well, no, you can't turn it off anytime.
Okay.
But if you're at home, you can not have it on.
You take off.
Yeah. But if you're in the squad car and you got to have it on.
I feel like you would want to, man.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking from my own perspective, but I'm going to make sure this is on. So at all times you can know and see, and because otherwise then it's going to be someone else's word saying you did this and I don't, just put it right here. You can see for yourself.
Watch the video.
Right.
Play it.
Hey, I want to transition to something, man. You said when you first started, you were taking inmates to doctor appointments and dentists and different things like that, right?
Uh-huh.
There has to be some fun conversations, some silly, I don't know. There has to be something. You got to have a good story of one time taking someone here. I'm obviously not using any names, but is there anything? I thought that right away when you said that earlier. I'm like, there's got to be.
So it's interesting. There's some interesting, funny times, but a lot of times it was just them complaining. And they'd be complaining, oh, we had this for meals, or we had to go here, or I had to do this, or man, I didn't really do that shit. It was just a lot of that type of talk, man. And it was like, oh man, okay. I always make fun of, it's the jail's where we keep all the innocent citizens in the county,
Right.
Because none of them have done anything wrong to get there, of course,
Yeah.
So that's usually what a lot of the stories were. Every now and then you'd have somebody that was pretty down to earth, and would just, BS with you and you know, my whole thing has been, you know, no matter what you do, we all put our pants on the same way, you know.
Right.
So I'm gonna treat you just the same way, you know. We're all the same, you know. We're just in different positions.
We tried. I'm gonna throw a name to you. I know you'll remember it because we went to school with him. But Gary Monosmith.
Okay.
He's been incarcerated for a long time. He got out about a year ago when we started doing this. We were going to try to sit down with him, and I think there's an incident or somewhere he had to go to either like his halfway house or in between or even back in. I'm not quite sure. But I was really hoping to be able to sit down with him. I think that would be a great conversation. You think about going into prison pre-cell phone, you know, internet really
Yeah, it's a whole
wasn't
different
in
game
thing.
now.
Right. And then like now, you know, to come out into today's world here in 2023, 2024, I feel like I would love to pick someone's brain like that, you know.
So it'd be interesting to hear stories, but on the other side, you'd be surprised how much they have in the prisons and the jails. I mean, they have tablets, they have like internet.
You get their
time.
individual one
Yeah,
in the cell?
yeah.
Legally or?
Yeah.
Wow.
So they can sit and send text messages and
Watch
communicate,
YouTube.
and yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Is that something new or?
They started it, I would say, probably in the last 5 years or so, maybe 10.
That's a better life than a lot of people have outside of jail.
Absolutely.
And that's why a lot go back.
Right.
You know, they're like, man, I get meals, I get, you know, everything I need in the pen. Why not just stay?
Well, a lot of people,
Or they'll do something to get their sentence extended. Too. That's another thing that you got to look out for. Is like, and to talk with some of them, like, hey, you know, I've been in here for 20 years.
that's all I know.
Yeah.
That's
I don't want to go out there anymore.
So they'd go and batter a guard, and well, they just got 10 years tacked onto the on their
I've heard
sentence.
that.
That's
too.
sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is
You
very
know,
sad.
I've heard that, of course, people commit crimes and do the wrong things that takes them to jail based on, you know, the neighborhood that they live, the guys they hang around, and then they end up doing the wrong things and go to jail. And then what happens is, of course, the environment and people you meet in jail is not the best. And when you leave the jail, you need to show and have registered an address, which most likely is the address that you were previously before you went to jail.
Yep.
So what happens is we send people back to the same neighborhood they will hang out with the same people, they
Correct.
will do the same wrong things, and that becomes a cycle.
Yeah.
So I've heard that, and that's from a guy that he used to be the superintendent, or I don't know how you call it, general manager of the prisons, which is Kavli, Akpor. And he said that's one of the things that we should do better. Keep track of those people that leaves the jail and making sure, and the government should do that. Have another housing, like housing assistance for them to live in another place, not the same place that they came from.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that becomes a cycle, and they'll get back to jail.
To just
again.
say, hey, good luck. It's
Yeah.
not, I know what you mean.
So the follow up after they leave the jail is important, and the government does not take much care of that.
They have parole, and most people that are in prison have parole. And in most prison facilities, they have industry. So they have jobs where they gain skills, whether it's be doing schoolwork, whether it be like doing electrical work, maybe doing construction work, maybe even doing agriculture. What I've always said is before you get out, you need to have a plan.
Yeah.
You know, we need to do a better job of setting these people up with whether it be, hey, you're going to go work for this farmer,
gonna go
or
straight to the
you're going to
school.
go, you're going to go straight into whatever you've spent the last 10 years doing. Instead of, like you said, you know, I think parole was originally kind of designed for that, but it's gotten, there's too many. So, or they need to maybe realm it in that saying, hey, you know, you're eligible for parole in 6 months. We need to start working on what you're going to do, you know, and whether it's, you know, having contacts out in the community that'll give them the opportunity, you know, whether it's working construction to come out and say, okay, well, you're going to have, you know, you've done this here. You're going to go out and go into carpentry with such and such company,
Right.
you know. So I think that it would be a thing of private industry working with, you know, the state and local levels.
I think that'd be cool.
Because they
I
can
would
learn
love to
those
see
things,
that.
Yeah, I mean, they're teaching them the trades now,
Yeah,
but it's
they
like
can
you
take classes in prison too, right? Yeah.
But you just, okay, well, you came here for 5 days for the last 5 years, you know, we're going to put you, like Victor said, back in the same neighborhood, and
Yeah.
good luck to you.
Right. Yeah, I would like to see a better system in place for that. Because, I mean, clearly I think that system is somewhat broken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially, I think they need to look at it with the people that have been there the longest. You know what I mean? Your longer stay guys. You know, start with them. Because a lot of those guys, like, they want direction.
Yeah.
You know, they can be model inmates. Like, it's structure. It's when they get out and don't have any is when the problem is. Well, okay, we build you up to here. We're going to let you out. Like I said, you're going to have a job. You're not going to have to worry about that. You're not going to get out and be like, oh, well, I could go sling dope and make some money to get my own place. And then you're right back to where you began.
Right.
So I think it's just a matter of putting those, you know, we're already here doing this. Let's work on the follow-up. So.
And the government has money to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Follow
Yeah.
up.
Well, they're spending the money on all the tablets for each one, and you know, take that money and redirect it. I mean, something. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Pay
mean,
some tuition in some junior colleges or
and they have that.
something.
Yeah.
Like they have all school. I mean, you can get your. I think you can get your associate's degree.
Yes,
I'm
you
pretty
can.
sure you can.
Out at Henry
The
Hill.
problem is after you leave the jail, you're gonna go back to the neighborhood.
Exactly.
Even though you learned, you got an associate's degree in prison. You know.
Right.
So we have. It's called.
I'm gonna go back and get my bachelor's.
There you go.
I'm just kidding.
Problem solving courts. So like we have it's a drug court program here, and it's kind of like a last chance type thing. It's to defer from people going to DOC.
Yeah.
But like that program offers, I mean, literally everything to get somebody on the right path, whether it's, you know, one-on-one substance abuse, going to meetings, getting a structure down. And then it kind of builds. So once you have you have all your counseling sessions, your AA meetings, your whatever things you're working on, whatever they have you doing. And then it builds and it builds and then it builds to where, hey, okay, you've got a structure down. Now you need to get back in the employment. And then usually at that point, once you get somebody that's worked the last 40 weeks, we'll say, you know, of doing all this stuff, and then they get in their job, it's like they don't have that lifestyle of, you know, being strung out every day, that they've got that far away, that they have the tools to manage their life. And then, you know, I would say the success rate's maybe 50% right now. I'm just throwing that out there from what I've seen, because I've only been involved in the program about 3 years now. But it's designed and all the tools are there. So it's kind of like what we're talking about, except for it's before they get to being incarcerated, you know? So I would say that we're doing things out there to go in the right direction. It's just, you know, people have to take initiative for themselves too.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I'm gonna be blunt. There's people that don't belong in society and belong in prison. They're a menace to society, and they don't know anything different than that's the life they live.
Right.
I mean, you could give them whatever you want, they're gonna still do the same thing.
Yeah,
So.
like it goes back. There's always going to be the bad, you know, that 0 point, whatever, you know, bad apple.
Yeah, and they're out there.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, man.
Hey,
You
thanks
had
for having me
fun?
on, man.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
man.
It's always good to catch up with you, and I appreciate you jumping on the Talk About It podcast with us, Josh.
Hey, I appreciate having me on.
All
Thank you
right.
for coming.
You bet.
Yeah,
You
anytime.
got Josh Kramer, investigator, Josh Kramer, amazing host, Victor Dantas, and myself, Lauren Fulmer. Thank you. Hit subscribe. It's a great time to do so. We'll talk to you
guys
later.
next week.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Talk About It podcast.
I'm Victor Dantas.
I'm Lauren Fulmer.
And we would encourage you guys to subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to hit the bell. It's going to be right below the video. So you
Hit
guys,
the bell.
so you know when the next episode is up. All
We
right?
appreciate all the support.
Thank you.